Part 2. The World of the Sorcerer Healer. Page 60. At the Healer's House. Our private joke about the phone call had to do with something that happened years ago when Carlos phoned me one morning. He said he was visiting the city but was feeling very unwell. He was very strong, but of delicate health, which he blamed on his excesses and on the profusion of power plants Don Juan had given him. Thus, although surprised, I did not find it strange that he was calling for my help when he told me in a suffering voice that he had a terrible stomachache. He asked me to go to a neighboring village for a remedial brew that had been prepared by his herbalist friend. I immediately put myself at his disposal and set out for the village. When I arrived at my destination, things got complicated. It turned out I was to go to the nearby hills to harvest the right herb for making the potion Carlos required. I was warned that the area was dangerous, but in spite of that, I waded into the shrubbery in search of the necessary plants. I was busy collecting a tiny amount of the rare herb when a number of bad-tempered and muscular fellows armed with rifles and machetes sprung out of nowhere. They started a nasty row with me, claiming I'd invaded their collection area. I tried to talk to them and explain why I needed the plants, offering them money and my watch. When I said that the herbs were for Don Elidio, however, they got really angry and began thrashing me, beating me so hard I thought I was going to die. I lay unconscious for an unknown period of time, too badly injured to move. I resigned myself to dying there among the hills. But my lucky star wanted me to be found by a female healer who rescued me and healed my wounds. The healer was Donna Silvia Magdalena, who eventually became my teacher. With her, I learned the art of healing and much, much more. During my time in her care, we talked a lot. She told me stories that made me cry with laughter, which in turn made my wounds hurt very badly. I learned to love her unconditionally. How I relished those days in spite of being so very ill. According to her, I was almost dead when she got to me. She told me she would never have found me but for a whirlwind that gave her indication of where I was and led her to me. When she saw me, she said, I was naked and covered in blood, whereupon she took me home and personally nursed me for 3 months. She used her knowledge to heal my wounds, and then, following almonds, took me on as her healer's apprentice. I remember one occasion when, from under the window where I used to spend my bedroll, I could see the full moon shining in all its glory. I used to spend hours there, gazing at the stars. From where I lay, every night I would watch the constellation of the Big Dipper sail by, like a moving carriage. It would lure me into deep, healing sleep. That particular night, I had a strange dream. I even thought that my attacks had returned and that I had relapsed into one of my recurring nightmares. Frightened, I woke up, and by the light of the moon, I saw a huge coyote sitting on the frame of the open window, examining me with curiosity. My sudden movement frightened the animal away, and my hysterical reaction roused Donna Silvia, who immediately came to my aid. I was still screaming in terror when she arrived. My voice faltered with emotion as I described what I had seen. She dismissed the incident, however, saying it was just a bad dream. She would prepare me a lime blossom infusion, which would calm me and make me go back to sleep. As she stoked up the fire in the wood stove to make the tea, I told her I was still excited by what had happened. Although after a while I managed to calm down a bit, I was not all that convinced that what I had seen had been just a dream. The sight of a coyote sitting in the window with legs crossed like a person was really something outside of the realm of the possible. The next day, I asked Donna Silvia again about what had happened, and to my surprise, she said, laughing like anything, that I had probably been visited by the Nagua. I experienced a jolt. Until then, I believed her to be just an ordinary healer. But hearing her utter the word Nagua filled me with excitement because that was the first time I'd heard that term being used outside the context of Carlos's books. Full of curiosity, I asked, "What do you know about the Nagua, Donna Silva?" She gave me a huge, wide-eyed look, full of terror, and, crossing herself, said in a dramatically broken whisper, "The Nagua is the devil." In a highly theoretical fashion, she told me that the Nagua often prowled around looking for a sick person to snatch, and that I must have been lucky since it hadn't killed me. The conversation was not what I had expected. In order to change the subject, I said she may have been right last night when she said that it had all been just a dream. She, however, vehemently insisted that I had been visited by the Nagual, and even began examining the window frame for the animal's hair to prove that what she had said was true. She went on scaring me for a long time with casual comments about people she had heard had been carried off by the Nagual. She claimed that the Nagual was a demon that could swoop down on anyone and even pry into their dreams. With a deadly serious face, she advised, "You have to be very mindful of what goes on in your dreams. If you sense anything strange in your dream, you must tell me at once." I had suffered since childhood from terrible nightmares in which, among other things, I would dream of falling into a bottomless pit, or a monster would chase me, always just a few steps behind. I was never able to see it, yet somehow I knew it was horrible and was going to hurt me. After a fallen dream, I'd wake up suddenly, frightened and screaming. But whenever the monster pursued me through my dream, I'd undergo hours of torment, fleeing and hiding and trying unsuccessfully to wake up. I would finally end up falling into some blurry blackness, then wake up very tired and covered in sweat, as if I had run a marathon. My general weakened state and the rural environment were beginning to have an effect on me. Her comments, which in different circumstances may not have mattered to me at all, now worried me a great deal and further fueled the fire of my nocturnal fears, so much so that I spent several long nights with my eyes wide open, dreading the moment of falling asleep, which would inevitably come because of fatigue. As if they had only been waiting for my fear to manifest itself, my nightmares would return with greater intensity than ever. The attacks were so fierce that on some nights my screams would wake everyone. On one such occasion, I began recounting one of my nightmares to Donna Sylvia, but she would not listen, merely saying that I should stay alert in order to avoid the worst. One night, when all seemed lost, I met with Donna Sylvia in one of my dreams. She started giving me instructions that made me completely forget my fears. I would also forget the dream itself. On awaking, dream events would almost immediately fade from my memory. I would only vaguely remember having encountered her and other people. It was as if a fog had invaded my mind, preventing me from thinking coherently about what I had dreamed only a moment before. At that time, I still had no control over the fluctuation of dream images and would lose memory of them with tremendous speed. Eventually, I realized that if I followed the simple tip of fixing a scene with my attention, the images remained in focus much longer. I also learned to use the technique of returning to the starting point for recuperation every time I felt I was losing control. That is how I ended up participating in a world of activities that were truly beyond any description.